come to save the day.
Welcome to Mighty House. This is a radio show for people with problems, home improvement problems, that is, and for people who want common sense guidance on how to build green and live a more sustainable lifestyle. Send an email or call into the show. The Mighty House crew is on the job. This is Mighty House.
All right. Hey, look, we're back with tile installation part 2. And if you missed part 1, it was, what did we cover there, Rich? Backer board, setting materials, grouts, waterproofing, types of tile and stone. So if you missed part 1, go back and you can check that out and catch up to where we are at part 2. But you can always join us on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Periscope Live right now, brought to you in part by Mr. Floor. And wherever you're watching, make sure you click on the like button and hit subscribe. There's bells and whistles and all kinds of things to click on depending on what service you're watching us on. And that way you're notified when we hit the air. Podcasts of all our shows are available at mightyhouse.net, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and on HomeImprovementUSA.com. Find links to all of them at mightyhouse.net. Now here's the trick. Just go to mightyhouse.net and you can have access to everything right there. If you want to watch the video, it's right there on the homepage. You want to go listen to stuff, iTunes, it's all right there. There's a link to all of it. So if you just go to mightyhouse.net, you'll be covered and you'll get squared away. So I think today, Rich, say that again, Rich.
Outstanding. But you should sign up for the newsletter because then you'll also get a link to the different specials and things that we have running. So you want to do that at mightyhouse.net on the contact us page and just need first, last name, email address, and you'll get that newsletter each week.
That's right. And sometimes we get tools away from Klein Tools. They're there. They help us out and give us free stuff all the time. Left-handed pliers that are still sitting here. I haven't given them away yet. So we've got
left-handed Kleins.
That's right. Left-handed Kleins. And it's not an April Fool's joke either. It's real. It's real.
No,
so with
3rd.
that, I think, what's that?
It's a June 3rd joke.
It's a June 3rd joke.
No, they are left-handed cutters.
Left-handed Kleinman pliers, yes. So I think today we've got a lot of stuff to cover, and I'm just going to be your Vanna right now, and I will hold up the stuff that you happen to be talking about, and then maybe give my 2 cents if there's 2 cents to be given. How's that sound?
It sounds great. We'll just give it a whirl, but please chime in at any point.
I shall. Okay. Let her roll.
So let's go with basic tools. All right. So we talked about all the materials, setting materials, waterproofing last week. So this week, I want to stress on how to get set up to start laying it. So let's talk about basic tools right off the get-go. Good knee pads.
Right here.
I didn't have those when I was younger. I now have knees like an old hooker. They are beat to death. So you want to get some good knee pads. Wear them. Don't leave them in the truck.
Yep, there you go, Jezebel. Right there. So these are really nice. They're plastic. They're soft. And then they have a gel inside of them. So when you kneel down, it's really comfortable. It's nice and cushy. And these are worth every penny when you get a good set. And I like the soft ones. They make hard cased ones, and they slide around on the tile. They leave marks and stuff. That's why I like the softer ones, because if you're working on wood floors or something like that, they don't mar up the floor. So. Okay, back to you, sir.
Okay. Obviously need a measuring tape. Gonna need some kind of tape to lay things out. But if you're doing a small bathroom, I don't even use a tape to lay out much. I actually will just lay a row of tile and then figure out what my dip balance is and go from there. But we'll talk about that later. You need a pencil or a Sharpie, something to make some marks. Yeah.
A dip balance?
The difference or the balance.
Oh, dip balance. Oh, see? Okay, yeah, you got it. So pencil, right there. What's that? Say, look.
That's right a flat square pencil. Yeah.
Carpenter's pencil. That's another show to explain how to use that.
Like that, right? That's the whole point of it being large. Just, I can write. That's it. Okay. So being old school, and once you made your marks, we'd use a chalk line. We'd snap some lines, but that's kind of old school. Bosch has a fantastic line of lasers out. And the one that I have, there you go. Self-leveling. can do all kinds of stuff. That one probably goes horizontal and vertical.
Yep. And you just hit a button here and it just goes one side. See, it's flashing right now because it doesn't like it because it's not level.
Right.
If I hold it level, see, and it'll shoot, vertical lines, horizontal lines, or both. So if you want to have like a corner, you want to start right in the middle and have both of them, and you're going to start tiling out from that point, you can set that up to do that also. Does it shoot it on the back? No, you can't see it on the back wall either.
No. But and then they have an advanced version that'll do vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. So those are really handy because a lot of people like everything on 45s now. So having it out, but something like that, you just figure out your 45 or shine it corner to corner. There's your line. Boom, done.
Right. So the other thing with this one, though, the downside for this basic one is if you're doing a larger room, you may want 360. So that way it's shooting a line across the whole space. If you're going to be tiling around the entire room, one of those that shoots 360 all the way around, because every time you move it, now you have to readjust it because it's never going to be the same. Even though this does swivel on here, once you touch it, it moves just a little bit and it might be off again. So if you've got one that shoots 360, if you're really doing a large space or you're doing all the way around, you want to make sure you're level all the way around, then maybe get one of those.
Yeah. Again, it's budget because they do the more features, more cost. So it's that simple.
Oh yeah.
So, and then just a little trick, like if you're old school like me and you use the chalk line, using like clear sealer, clear, any kind of clear paint or hairspray, spray it over the chalk line. Yes, the hairspray. I know Ron would not have any hairspray in the truck.
No, I have no use for hairspray.
Yeah. But if you paint over with something clear over your chalk lines, that way when you're going over it, troweling mud or whatever, it won't just disappear. Or if you slide your knee pad across it, it won't erase the line as easy. So that's always good to have.
Pencil lines too, though, because the pencil lines will still smear. So if you hit it with some clear lacquer, spray it down, that holds the lines. That's really a really cool trick.
Yep. Yeah, it makes it easier. We need a screw gun for just. Up. So
I think I got one of those.
Yeah, you look like
one of those from last week. See right there.
Man, that's bad video right there.
Let me take this right off your gut right there for a second here. Excuse me there, Rich.
Yeah. There you go.
There, see, or you could go old school like that, just have a level. Here, let me give this back to you. You want this back?
Thanks.
Here, right there. Okay. I'll set it over here. I'll get it over here out of the way. See, we'll put it right there.
That's fine. Yeah, just lean it against the shower unit.
That's exactly it.
That's what it looks like. That's awesome. Perfect. All right. So the screw gun isn't really for screwing down anything because we did that last week when we were doing all the prep. What the screw gun's for is you see in the background there all that wall tile. So you look at that bottom row and see it's half the height of the rest of the wall, right? Because they tried to center it. You got 3 inches at the top, 3 inches at the bottom, it looks like. So the best way to do that is to get yourself a level line on the wall, 3 inches above the floor, and you screw a cleat to the wall. Then you can lay all your wall tile. Cleat, ledger. But then you can lay all your wall tile and it'll stay perfectly flat. Let that dry. Next day you fill in the bottom and then you grow. Okay. So we talked about the level, always handy. Hammer. The hammer is really just in case things go really bad. You just don't want to punch it because you'll blow your knuckles. The hammer comes in handy for just smashing stuff. I'm not sure what you're using hammer for setting tile.
I like this one too because it's got a rubber handle. So if you need to just bump something, you can put that rubber edge on there and just like give it a quick tap, and it'll help push things back into place. So
okay,
I use the handle probably more tiling than I do the actual hammer.
I would hope so. Got to mix up some mud. We're gonna need some thin set. We need a mixing blade or
one of these.
Yeah, one of those.
I like that. Man, that's a good one right there. See,
that one doesn't look new.
No, that baby's been used. That's a good one right there. See, and here's where you use your hammer, because now you want to clean that off. You just go like that. See, and it cleans it right off.
And you really don't want all those loose chunks on there because when you're trying to trowel out the floor to get it level, then you don't want chunks in there. Becomes aggravating. Okay.
I'm going to set you stuff I already did over on this side now. Okay.
Okay. Some
So
specialty
I'm not
tools.
reaching into your butt every time for the next tool.
Well, I can move over. So it doesn't look so bad. All right. So some specialty tools, tile cutters. So we can use the slide and snap. I don't know if you have a slide and snap.
Yeah, I got one of those. Hang on. I'm coming back. Here you go. Here's one of these. Look at it right there.
There you go. So that's good for porcelain, ceramic. That one, how long is that one? They'll do 12 by 12, 16 by 16?
Yeah. 12 by 12. It's an older Ruby. We've got some larger ones. We've got the big wet saws that'll do up to 4 feet, but those are hard to bring into the studio here. So
yeah. So
this one,
you're doing a standard
this is
area.
Most common one. Yep.
Yeah. But your tile sizes now, everybody loves this, 12 by 50 or 12 by 60 inch porcelain. So it's a little harder to cut with a small slide and snap. The wet saw, like you said, that's a great one. And you can rent them. I used to do stuff with a skill saw and a diamond blade, and it got really old. And then I found I could rent a wet saw for like $50 for the day. I'm like, what am I doing? So wet saw is a lot more fun to use too.
And go ahead.
I was just racing through this. Handheld diamond cutter.
Your diamond blades, though, you got to make sure you get enough. If you're cutting porcelain or something like that, you're gonna smoke through those diamond blades. So you might need to pick up an extra one.
Right. But I had a handheld grinder with a diamond blade.
I didn't bring that in. I left that in the truck.
Okay, but again, you can buy cheap ones, and they'll start out at 3,500 RPMs and can be a little scary because your hand's right near there. But you spend a little more. They make variable speed ones, which are much nicer because you can control the speed of the cut. And if it's a fully insulated model and you plug it into a GFCI outlet, I will take a jug, like a 2-liter bottle, put a pinhole in it, and put that on the tile. That's my wet saw. Then so this keeps the dust down.
Because that's what I was going to say. You want to make sure you've got some kind of some kind of protection, dust protection, if you're cutting with that with a grinder without soaking down the tile first. So you want to make sure you've got some kind of protection, because that you start breathing all that dust in, it gets pretty nasty fast.
Yeah, that's why you cut them on the tailgate of the truck outside.
Yeah.
But you also need earplugs.
Yes.
Yes, get hearing protection because it's noisy. Anything with the wet saw is nice because the wet saw, no dust, little splash. You got to set up the room with some Visqueen, but the wet saw is definitely the go. Did you happen to bring in nippers?
Nope, I left those in the truck too, but I do have.
So
those,
nippers are a specialized tile, it's a specialized pliers for tile, and it's just got like 2 teeth. And it just basically, if it didn't break on your line, you got to just make a little cut edge off of there. You take the nipper and you pinch it off of there. Yep. That again was more for ceramic tile. It doesn't work quite as well on porcelain. It doesn't work so well on stone, but it was really made for ceramics. So, all right.
And you could use that you could do the whole thing, do all your cuts with that too. So if you have a glass cutter, and you score your line with a glass cutter, and then you take the nippers and you can pop it and break it right on that line. And that could be if you're doing ceramic tile, that could be your whole setup right there.
Right. So, and again, it's not going to work so good on porcelain or anything. It's ceramic.
Correct.
All right. Let's talk about trowels. So there you go.
There. I got a whole bucket of trowels. Which one do you want?
What kind of let's talk about layered. The smaller the tile, the smaller the notch.
Okay.
So
we've got.
If I'm going to lay your standard tile, let's call it a quarter by quarter notch. That would probably be good for a 12 by 12 tile on a good surface.
Okay. So, here's a bigger one. See, I'm going to come right up to the camera here. So you got.
Right. So that one I can't tell. It's got some age and wear on it as well. Oh, there you go. So the smaller one's good for like wall tile, wall mosaics, your field, the small mosaic tiles and some of your listels. And then you use that larger notch trowel for maybe a 12 by 12 to 16 by 16. And when you get into the really large tile, you might want to use something that's even half by half.
Yes.
And that would lay your bed, and you then we'll talk about the actual techniques, but you'll go across that and get it all the same height, back butter your tile, drop it on there, and it's good to go.
Now there's square notch, and then there's also the V notch.
Mm-hmm. And V notch is typically used more with the plastics and some other tiles and wood, like the wood overlay stuff. And then if you're
working with the mastic told you not to work with last week, that's how you would use that.
Right. That's what it's from. So if you're setting glass tile, though, I would recommend a trowel with no notches.
Oh,
you want no notches.
So do I have one? I think I do. If not,
well, it looks more like a regular trowel, but you can use the other side, the flat side of that same trowel.
See, there's one that needs really clean, but you've got the notched edge side there, and there's your smooth side there.
And the reason you don't do the notch side is obviously it's glass tile. When you look into the tile, you will see the notches. Now, a lot of the tile manufacturers started putting backing on the glass, so you couldn't see through, but you still can see through the edges. If any of the grout bleeds through or any of the setting material bleeds up, it does it in points, and you'll see it from an angle. So always do the glass tile with a flat trowel. Don't notch it. No notches.
No notches. Don't need no stinking notches.
Right. So as I said, the ceramics mostly quarter or 3/8 by or quarter by quarter. We go up to thicker tile, could go all the way up to a half by half. So think about that. The other thing is, and I don't know if you have one in there, but if you got a margin trowel, that's handy. But when you're thinking about how many square feet of tile you have to lay, the bigger the notch, the more mud you're going to need. So on the bag, it'll tell you at this trowel, you will cover this much. Now, a margin trowel is actually just a small, narrow trowel that's only 5 or 6 inches long, only 2 inches wide. But what you use that for is getting mud out of the bucket, for scraping the sides of the bucket. It does a lot for just keeping things cleaned up instead of trying to get it with that big old trowel out of the bucket or dumping it on the floor. So margin trowels are handy to keep yourself.
For that.
Pardon?
I use a 5-in-1 scraper for that.
Okay. That would work as well, but they make margin trowels just for that. All right. So then we got floats, and about the only float you really need in tile work is that there is a rubber float, and that's for grouting. So you can see you don't need a lot of tools, a lot of basic tools. So if you're not going to tile tons of stuff, you can buy the cheap stuff. But in all honesty, if you just got the house, you're thinking about doing all the rooms, I always say spend the money now, because if you do 3 or 4 rooms, it'll pay for itself buying a good tool. So don't just buy the cheap plastic thing because you think you're going to do one and throw it away, because the amount of aggravation you'll get halfway through when it cracks or breaks. And now you're in the middle of laying a floor and you're running back to the box store or something. So no, spend some money. Sponges. Grout sponges are very handy. There you go. And there's something interesting about grout sponges. They don't stain and they don't stink like a kitchen sponge.
Because?
I don't know. But you could use that sponge on black grout, wash it out, and it'll still be that color.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like weird how, I don't know, they don't seem to stain, but that's a good sponge there.
Yeah. So this is just a generic one right here, but
I got a couple of those and they work great. No complaints from me.
Yep.
All right.
Agreed.
So those are your basic tools. Got enough to lay out. We got enough to install, and we've got enough to grout it. So you know what else we didn't talk about? You need, it's not even on the list. Probably good, three good 5-gallon pails.
I got it. That's how you carry all your tools in.
Absolutely.
You bring the bucket.
Absolutely. Bring the buckets. So you
need
one with
I can show you the inside of this bucket. It's nasty. It's got all kinds of garbage in it.
I've worn the bottoms out of them with the mixer. So just keep cranking through them. All right. So let's talk about some installation. Basically, in the layout and installation is pretty much the same for all of them. Oh, you want to go to the square? Oh,
no. I'm just saying you want to be square.
No, I jumped. I jumped. So yes, laying out. Let's square the space. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find out if the room is in fact square. So you can do that with that. There is a frame and square. So you can find the center of the room. You can snap some lines, or you can lay your laser out. If you want to do the tile on a diagonal, you got to do the old triangular thing, the isosceles. Is it a right triangle? 3, 4, 5. Remember, we never wanted geometry when we were in schools. Never going to use this in my life, and everything we do now is geometry.
Yes.
So using a 3, 4, 5 method, you can actually go to the middle of a wall. You can go back 3 feet, measure out 4 feet, and then diagonally from that point to another to, connect those 2 points at 5 feet. And that's going to give you a true 45-degree angle. And boom, you can start pulling lines from there. So laying out your room, making sure everything is square is good. And when you lay out your tile, make sure you include your joints.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because the box said, right. No, just because the box said 12 by 12, they're not 12 by 12. They're typically metric, so they might be 11 and 7/8 or close. And if you're doing an 1/8-inch joint, then it's every 12 inches you would have a line, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure you take that into consideration. When you're doing like a small bathroom could be 4 feet, 6 inches wide. I'm throwing that number out there for a reason. I have a 12 by 12 tile. I can start on one wall with a 12-inch tile. When I get to the other side, I'm going to have a 6-inch tile. And that's going to really be visible that it's all off that much. I can start in the middle, and I can go 2 tile this way, 2 tile this way, but then I end up with 3-inch cuts. And a 3-inch cut along the wall looks terrible with a 12-inch tile.
Yes.
So now the trick is split it. So if I centered the room and I move over half the tile, so instead of being in the middle of the room, I go off 6 inches. That's going to get me a new line, and the center of my tile would be over my center line. By doing that, by going 2 tile each way, I will have a 9-inch rip. I'll have 3 full tiles in the field and a 9-inch rip on each side, which makes it look much more pleasing to the eye. It's a lot less waste of tile. And all you had to do is move the line over half the width of a tile. So if that's confusing the hell out of you, I can understand that because I don't have any visual aids.
So the thing with that is, if your wall is in or out, it doesn't quite go straight. If you've got that thin 3-inch tile there, it's going to be real noticeable if that wall runs out a little bit. It'll be less noticeable if you have a 9-inch tile there. So another good reason to do that is if your walls are not truly square, and they're running off a little bit, that 9-inch will help hide that imperfection in the existing framing.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of good reasons for doing it. So in a small bathroom, you can go in there with a tape or your laser and all that. But quite honestly, most of the time I'll just lay tile on the floor, just go all the way across, see what I got left. And then from there, start adjusting where I need to be to get my differences. And in a bathroom, that works just fine.
Yeah. So you'll just take it. Yeah. I took one of your spacers there. So you just lay it all out, put your spacers in there. So you've got everything spaced. You know exactly how it's going to go down. Do one direction, do the other direction. Boom, done. Rock and roll.
And then once you have your grid laid out, one of the things I like to do is put little X's or arrows on my lines, which side I figured laying the tile to. Because, you're going to have your grout joint. So you're always going to lay, like looking down the floor, I might have 4 lines. I'm always going to set the tile to the right side of the line. So that'll be tight to the line. The next row, tight to the line. And that 1/8-inch joint then will be always running true.
Correct.
So, again, visuals would help, but we need more sponsors. All right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's always good because then we can just go out live and actually just show you how to do it.
That's right. Well, then we have a full crew who's actually got their hands in there doing it, and we just keep talking like we do.
If you'd like to sponsor the show, go to mightyhouse.net.
Yeah. Send an email to ron@mightyhouse.net or rich@mightyhouse.net. That'd be great.
Rich is much better at it. Send it to rich@mightyhouse.net.
Yeah. Really should check the email. All right. So if you're going to do custom designs, it's going to take more time. So, and one of those could be, doing a full tile perimeter and then doing a diagonal in the middle, things like that. So if you're doing something more ambitious like that, don't try to do it in a day. So either set your field, the middle, and then come back and cut it nice and clean so it's all straight, and then lay your edges to it, or vice versa. You could lay the border and then come back and fill in the middle later. I prefer to do the middle, and then I can go in there with a wet saw or with a diamond blade and trim everything, make sure it's perfectly straight. Then I can work to it. So different ways of doing it. So all of that stuff is just based on the material you choose. So your layout's going to vary a little bit. All right. Installation. Let's get into that one. Installation is very similar for almost any type of material. Your thin set, all of that is going to be basically the same. So you want to get in there. You're just going to use a trowel, and you're going to spread your thin set all over the floor. And depending on the size of the tile, if you're using a 1/2-inch notch, you're going to want to get a good 3/8 thick layer all over that floor. And then how do you want to do that kind of flat with the smooth side? And then you turn the trowel perpendicular to the floor, turn it 90 degrees, and you scrape that against the floor. And when you pull that across the floor, that's what gives you a consistent 1/2 by 1/2 notch. And that's what your tile will first sit on, and it should be level.
Yeah, and if you're doing this and then you're rocking it back and forth, that's going to change the height of that notch, and so your thin set's always going to be moving. The other thing I like to do is I put the mud on there, and I'll use the flat side just to scrape it all on there and make sure that I bed everything down into the underlayment. And I got a nice bond there. Then I flip it over again. I come across, put some more on, and then I actually use the notch part to set the tile. And then a lot of times I will butter the backside of the tile too, just to introduce that thin set to the backside. So it's already starting to absorb that moisture and bond together. So when you set that tile, it's going to bond really good.
Yeah, so the smaller tiles, you don't necessarily need to back butter, but as you get to the larger tiles, you definitely want to back butter them. If you've been on a floor and you knock on it and you hear the hollow spots, that's mostly because the trowel wasn't perfectly square, so you might have had a little dip in it, and then by not back buttering it, not making up that difference, right? So you want to run that through. The other thing is when your tile goes down, you do not want to hammer it down or push down on it. You want to let the tile sit. And the reason you're doing that is by back buttering it, it's going to sit on the Portland base that you just spread, and it will bond. Now they'll settle in a little bit too, just from vibration while you're working. You give it that little push to make sure it tightens up. That's enough. You don't need to be pressing down on them. Yeah. So you just want to set them there. They'll start setting up, and then check your corners. So that's when you want to use spacers. And the spacers, I'm kind of weird on how those work. They make those T-shaped ones. I think you've got one there. Yeah. Yeah. So those, when you look on the packaging, they're going to show you to put those in the corner, for 4 tile. I don't like those for that, because what happens is your tiles are typically not square. Once they're fired, they can twist a little, especially ceramic and porcelain, right? And if you're buying stone, if it's not rectified, it won't. So we put those in vertically as you're holding that. You just turn it and drop it in there, and then just kind of eyeball all your lines to make sure they look straight. But if you use those as they're designed, your floor can start running off pretty bad, especially, like I say, on a tile that's not square. You're holding up something green because it's invisible.
Oh, that's true, isn't it? Look at that. That one's not going to work. Oh, like that? Oh yeah, there you go. Now you can. Now I got a hole in my hand. I didn't even think about that when I got the grip. So I think there is
trying to get out of your way while you keep getting that stuff here. Dive in there now. No.
Let's see what. Wait. Okay. So.
Wait, that's not a very good video either.
No. So I could go get more spacers, because we've tried everything.
Yeah.
We've got these kind you stick down in a metal T and you turn them and you can pull up on them and you spin it and you lock them down. Those work pretty good on certain kinds of tile. The ones that guys seem to like the most are these here that go underneath the tile, goes on both sides, and then you take this wedgie and you wedge it in there, and that will pull up both sides of the tile and level it out and make sure that you're from tile to tile you're really smooth. And then if you're having trouble, you can actually use one of these, and this will actually help pull it and tighten it up.
Yes. So I highly recommend those. I love them. So for any large format or plank flooring. So I used those exclusively on when I laid the floors in my own home. I used a 12 by 48 inch tile with a 1/3 overlay. And by putting those between the tile and then that wedge and tightening that up, that actually forces the tiles to align. And you come back the next day, you knock the wedges out, you snap those off, and you can grout the floor, and it's beautiful. Now, before you snap that off, hang on. The width of that is, they sell different widths. That looks like a 1 or 2 millimeter width. You can buy those up to like 6 millimeter. So your width of your grout joint is also dictated by that spacer. So on a large format with a tight lay, they are great.
And you keep wiggling it.
It's not designed to break off at the bottom. It usually snaps right at the wedge. That's part of it. So
right in here somewhere.
Yeah,
I have
those things are not that expensive. You just buy all the tees. The wedges can be reused multiple times. But absolutely love those. Absolutely love those.
We have buckets of these yellow wedges.
Yeah, but and then the other thing too is just make sure you after you snap those all off, just go around on your hands and knees, clean up your little joints, any mud that might have came through. Take a utility knife and cut any of the plastic that might be sticking up a little bit too high. Maybe it didn't snap off cleanly. So you want to, when
you're setting your tile, have one of these handy.
Absolutely. Wipe the faces. Yep. Keep the face clean as you go. Then tomorrow you won't have to scrub or chisel it off.
Right.
So keep your hands clean. Makes life easier. Yep. All right. So let's talk about grouting.
Grouting. Okay. So we're going to go back to our float.
Yeah. I know. I was just looking at something here. Yeah. Somehow I didn't even write a paragraph on it. So yes. So grouting is very simple. It's actually, I don't mind laying tile. I hate grouting. Because grouting is just sort of, the actual grouting is easy. The real trick to grouting is, again, we talked about it last week, large gap tile. You want to use a sanded grout. If you use like the T spacer that Ron was showing you, you might want to use an unsanded grout because you're not going to have that much going in there. You can't be forcing grains of sand in 1 millimeter. So that'll help determine sanded or unsanded. When you grout, keep it kind of watery to start. You want it kind of thin, because if it's too thick, you have to press on it too hard and it's hard on your arms. If you make it too thin, though, as it dries and the water evaporates out, your grout joint shrinks too much.
Right.
So getting that balance of making it workable and that where you can smear it, and not too thin where it shrinks. Yes.
That's in the tiling dictionary, smearing.
Yes. So the trick to grouting and not messing up your grout joint, not having to do too much, is get on the edge again and go diagonally across your grout joints. Do not go in the same direction as your joint, because the lip of that grout float will go right into that joint. You want to take that at a diagonal and squeegee the floor.
Yes.
And then take that, once you get a 2 foot by 2 foot or 3 foot by 3 foot section, whatever it is you can reach, you take that sponge and you go over the surface and stay away from the joints. Just clean the face of the tile. Let the joints be, because if you add more water to them, you create a bigger mess. So just want to do that. Depending on the surface of the tile, let's back up a little bit, because we're going to talk about sealers and maintenance at the end. If you've got a stone like slate or marble, anything that's really porous, you probably would want to seal it before you grout it. So get it all laid, get it all clean, then seal it all. And by sealing it prior to grouting, you will not get all the pigments from the grout into the face of the tile. So your floor ends up being the same color all across. When you went and spent all that money for stone, you can ruin it by not sealing it before grouting it. And it makes it easier to wash the grout off because it doesn't penetrate. The surface is now sealed.
And it doesn't bond as well.
Exactly. So always seal before grouting. Most, not porcelain, not ceramic, but all your natural stone products. All right. So once we got it all grouted, all we need to do now is seal it. So, and most sealers are either silicone or water-based. Water-based sealers are pretty good, but they're not as good as silicone-based sealers. They don't last as long. Is really all it comes down to. Oh, sorry, I did get out of his way too far.
Yep.
All right. So silicone sealers put a gloss on the floor sometimes. So you have standard sealers, and then you have enhancing sealers.
Yep.
So again, this
we could put Fuzzy on the spot right now and have him bring that up from last week. That picture of the sealer that was enhancing sealer, and then the regular one that was on it. So
You're
if we really want to
one, right?
Yeah, it was like a red one.
Exactly. It was a.
What?
Yeah, I guess you could call it red. It was brown, tans, and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So
let's see how good he is.
Okay. So while he's searching.
That's not it.
That's waterproofing.
That's waterproofing. We're looking for a tile with a sealing enhancer in it. So it's a slate tile, and half of it's shiny and half of it's dull brown.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're talking about. Let me grab it. I know what you're talking about.
See, there we go. We challenged Fuzzy. We challenged him, and he's coming. He's going to come through for us.
He's got this, no problem.
Yeah. So, okay, natural sealers, enhancing sealers.
So a natural sealer is going to somewhat waterproof and protect your floor, but it's going to keep it. It's going to look the same as it did when you took it out of the box dry. Okay. So if you were to wet down your stone tile that you bought, again, this doesn't apply to ceramic or porcelain, but a stone tile. If you wet it, take that wet sponge and you see all these crazy colors come out, he found it. So the tile on your right, that would be a standard tile done, all dried out. I mean, that could be sealed. It'll look just like that. But if you use an enhancing sealer, like there is on the left side, the enhancing sealer brings out all the colors and it'll stay like that. The thing is, you can never go back to the standard look. So if you don't like that, don't do it, because you can't make it go. You can take and put enhancing sealer on a floor that's already sealed and it'll go colorful, but you can't take the enhancing out of the other one without grinding the floor.
Yeah, I can sand it down, right?
Yes, you can grind the floor. You can have it honed. And we do that with some like stone floors where, they're like the slate, not so much, but I mean, some granites and stuff where we'll have a company come in and hone the floors to get rid of any lippage whatsoever and then repolish them. But that's, again, you want a floor that's like glass. That's one of the steps you have to do,
Right. And again, just to cheat, if you want to see what it's going to look like with that enhancing sealer on it, just take a stone and just get it wet. And it'll darken to that color. If you like it, great. Use an enhancing sealer. If you don't, then leave it natural.
That's right. So then the final thing we'll talk about is just cleaning your new floor. So
what's
to
her
clean
name?
the new floor. Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I guess so. Because baking soda works great on grout joints for cleaning out stains. So, but that's a little baking soda and water. And you get down with a toothbrush or a scrub brush and you do your grout joints. And if you do that, you want to put a sealer on the grout. Put a grout sealer in there so you don't have to do it. But if you don't do it up front and you don't do it now, you will be back on the floor with baking soda. But it does work probably better than almost anything I've seen out there. Hydrogen peroxide will clean up mildew stains. It'll help get them colors out. But again, it's only a temporary fix. You need to get it clean. You need to get it sealed so that you cut off that moisture source so the mildew doesn't grow any longer. Of course, Mr. Clean products for daily cleaning.
Sure.
Has a full line of stone and tile cleaners. So you definitely got to check out MrFloor.com and, get some cleaners from them. And that always works out really well.
What color is the stone cleaner?
I don't know. He's got a rainbow of products out there. He really does.
Oh,
Please
I
to
didn't,
hold.
I didn't mean to put. Yeah, I didn't mean to put him on the spot now.
Hey,
Well,
listen,
you
if he's
did.
going to put you on the spot, you might as well put him on the spot.
Call me out, brother. Go for it. Here's a wood floor cleaner from Mr. Floor.
Blue, okay.
No, I didn't talk about wood floors.
Here's a natural stone cleaner from Mr. Floor. And guess what
Wait,
color
that one's
is?
invisible.
Let's call that one green. All right, so there's a stone cleaner. Here's a laminate cleaner. If you got laminate, you can use that.
Right?
Here's wood cabinetry cleaner. You got that one.
Which is nearly clear. You can see me right through it.
Tile and grout cleaner. There you go.
Is that blue? Looks blue.
That is
green.
Blue one. And let's see, the last one is the countertop cleaner, which I broke the.
Oh, well, at least it doesn't
So there
look
you
broke on air.
So if
There's
I
the
had a
full rainbow.
granite countertop, which one do I use? The countertop cleaner or the or the stone?
Yeah, I would use the countertop cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are all natural products, so it's all good. I know. I think you could use stone cleaner, but not knowing the ingredients, they may have a bit of a sanitizer in there.
Well, these are all supposed to be all natural.
Yeah, but something like citrus oil would still be a sanitizer.
Yep. So there you go.
So there you go.
Then the last
There's your what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
My last thing on the cleaning that I like doing is they make the little steam cleaner units that are handheld. So you can, you put a little water in them, you plug them in, let those things fire up, and you use those little steam cleaners on the grout. Oh man. And soap scum takes it right off, like right now. So that's, if you've got some nasty stains, it's one good way. Mold and mildew stains are really hard to get out. You're still going to have to use the baking soda peroxide to kind of bleach those out and get those back to clean. But the steam cleaner works really, really well. I like it. So if you got to do it, that's one way to do it. And it'll help. Yeah. Like if you've got a stone countertop that's got something in it, you can use a steam cleaner to help steam that out. When you're done, then you have to, again, go back and seal it.
Yeah, the boss has one of those that she uses on the floors, and it does a great job. You can tell the day he does it.
What about just putting fresh grout on top? Right? You got a rust spot, you just put primer on top of it, right?
Primer.
No. You got mildew, you just cover it with more grout.
No.
You got to get the grout saw out, you got to dig out the old grout, then you can put in some new grout. It's not just going over the top of it, because that'll just flake right off.
Right. It'll flake.
Oh, you guys must be NARI members.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are.
That's just like tuck point in your house. If you don't cut the old mortar out, it's just going to fall off in a year. So you got to route it out. So
that's it. So
that's the tile install. I think so. I'm sure if anybody watched this whole thing, they're confused as all hell.
But you can always send Rich an email and ask him. Yeah, because it's just rich@mightyhouse.net.
And I spell Rich RON.
Or better yet, just send it to Robbie, because then Robbie she'll take a look at it and go, I don't know what they're talking about here, and then she'll send it to us anyway. So you can always send them to Robbie too. So
and send pictures. If you're caught in something, just take a picture of it and send it over to the guys and say, what do I do next?
Right. And we got a couple of those this week too. It's like, okay, so what do I do with this? So all right, I think we're good. Next week we're going to talk about we're going to go with computer stuff next week and how to keep your home safe. I think, isn't that what we're going to do?
We're hoping as soon as you hear back, but that's the intent.
I think we'll just do it anyway, even if they don't call. So we'll just do it on our own
and
make it up.
Well, then I think Fuzzy Robbie's going to run most of the show.
Yes, there you go, Fuzzy Robbie. We'll ask Fuzzy Robbie the questions.
Yes,
and we'll go from there.
So hopefully next week we're going to geek out and talk to you about how to protect your home and your internet and all that with a standalone product.
There you go. And you can watch us on Facebook. You can look for us on YouTube, and go to any of your favorite podcast providers. We're on a whole bunch of them right there. So for Fuzzy Robbie and Rich Calgill, Robbie Earhart, who had the day off, I'm Ron Calgill, the Mighty House team. Keep it
square, and level. Until next time.